Welcome to Flame of Truth. It's just a special moment when I get here and you show up and we're together somehow around the world with Flame of Truth. And thank you for finding us today. I am Pastor Dan Smith. I've been at my church now, Garden Grove, about a year and a half, and just love that congregation. But I have this other world here with LLBN, and every once in a while I bump into people and I said, "Oh, we saw you last Friday night." So thank you for finding us here today. We're in a series on Noah. It's a series I did, and a series we called The Search. At my church, we had Noah's Ark, and we had Noah's Hut, and we had drama, and we just had fun wrestling with hard questions that come in our world today, but trying to answer them all from Noah and his ark in Genesis chapter 6, 7, 8, and 9. Anyway, but before we get into that, we have one more song. We had a couple weeks ago this wonderful choir, and so we're going to have them again today. Right down the street, just a few minutes from us here, the Loma Linda Chinese Adventist Church here in Loma Linda, and they are going to sing a great song called "I Love You, Lord." Wasn't that nice? Thank you, our Chinese choir, to sing "I Love You, Lord." Great song. I love it. Well, here we go with the whole question, when's the deadline? We're studying Noah's Ark and the whole issue of the flood. I wish I could somehow show a video clip that would help you get into it. I did it at my church. We showed a clip of the perfect storm. I've read the book and haven't seen the whole movie. But, this terrible storm that destroyed this fishing boat and it never came back. They don't know what happened. but just the combination of storms and hurricanes and all of it, all to the, can you imagine just being in an ocean and this terrible, terrible storm? Or the Titanic, and this boat is going down, and you're going to die in this frozen ocean. Noah's Ark. In Matthew 24, verse 37 says, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. It's all going to happen again. People were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. They knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. From one day to the next, it looks completely normal. The next day is a flood, and they're gone. My church, and I think maybe some of you have heard me talk about bee sting I got over in Thailand a few years ago. You're perfectly happy. We're canoeing and kayaking out in the ocean on the island of Thailand. We're going again in a couple months. And then all of a sudden, I get stung. And I feel in my pocket for my bee sting kit, and I forgot it that day. Didn't think I needed it in the ocean. And I realized I could die. From 1 minute to the other, you go from alive to maybe you're going to die. Told my church this week I had a colonoscopy the other day. And they said, we'll call you with the results. The next day, I get a message from a doctor's wife. I need to call you. Please call me back. I need to talk to you. Just terrified that I was now going to have colon cancer and going to die. I had a couple months to live. What should I do? I didn't call her back for a day. I was too scared, hoping it would just go away if I didn't call. Finally, I got to face up to it, call her, get the news. And I said, am I going to die? She said, no. We want to have you over for Easter dinner. Here we have these two options. One of the results of, I thought would be death. One was, we're inviting you to Easter, which is a symbol of life. Scary. When's the deadline? When does your deadline come? I fell out of a whitewater rafting boat. I'm underneath the boat. And you just know you got about 30 seconds. You got to get that boat off of you and come up and get some air or you're going to die. Then I swam over to the side and I had to climb up on these rocks, knowing that if I fell at any moment, I would die crashing on the rocks. A friend of mine driving on the road, going out to work late at night, misses one curve, goes off the road, upside down, paraplegic the rest of his life. From one moment to the next. Everything seems absolutely normal. I was young. We were in Thailand when we were missionaries. We were driving on our family in a car to go down on vacation to Malaysia. Couple hours, we come up on a train tracks early in the morning, and here is a whole bus that had tried to beat a train, and the train had hit it and just exploded. Bodies everywhere. 1 minute, these kids are students going to school, laughing, talking, having a fun time. Next moment, they're dead, being loaded into a truck, dead. Normal goes to craziness in a second. I was in high school, went to high school in Singapore, missionary school. And a little book that went all over the country in our particular church tradition, the Adventist church, the book called Now by Mary Kay. And in this book, there's this whole scenario that at the end of the world, there will be these laws about what day you can worship. And all of a sudden, that law happens, and she hears it over the radio. And she had taken as a time, we better get out of here. And she and her brother take off. Parents refuse to go. No, not that big a deal. Pastor refuses to go. Things look normal. And then all of a sudden, they're not normal at all. And we were all scared to death and thought, boy, who knows when this is going to happen? That's 40 years ago. She's my age. We're late 50s now. And we're still here. When's the deadline? When is that day going to come when it looks normal and all of a sudden, as in the days of Noah, then shall it be. One day's normal, the next day is the end of the world. How can you be sure? How can you be ready? Old parable I've used. Before I dated Hilda, my wife now, I dated this gorgeous, beautiful model lady. Everyone thought we were wonderful together, just happy and fun. We're out at a restaurant, and I'm ready to ask her to marry me. I've got my watch in my pocket. That's what we did back then. We didn't do rings. We did engagement watches. She asked me, she said, I'm going to go out to the restroom. I'll be back in a few minutes. I'll be back. Don't worry. An hour later, she hasn't come back. I send someone to the restroom. She's not there. She never comes back. Was that what God is like? God says, I'll be back soon. Soon? What does soon mean? Here we are, 2,000 years later, still hasn't come back. Revelation 22:12 says, behold, I'm coming soon. John 14, let not your heart be troubled. I'm going to go to my Father's house and prepare a place for you. If I go away, prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that where I am, there you may be also. When? 2,000 years later. It was just a parable about that lady, all right? But you understand, is that what Jesus has done? When's the deadline? Well, number one, we would say there is a deadline. Jesus says he's going to come. There will be an end of the world. There will be a second coming. And there are signs to tell us when it's going to happen. There is a deadline. Moses told Pharaoh, there's going to be plagues. You better be careful. Plagues are going to fall. And they fell. There was a deadline. You have this long to make a decision. And then there's going to be a deadline. Daniel said to Nebuchadnezzar, you are the head of gold, but after you, someone's going to come after you. You have this long to decide. And he said to, in Daniel 5, with the handwriting on the wall, tonight. There's a deadline. Jesus says, I'm going to die, then in 3 days, I will come back up. There's going to be a deadline. And here with Noah, he says 120 years, and there's going to be a flood. I'm going to give you this amount of time. I will give you plenty of time to build a boat. You decide. You think it all through. But there's going to be a day when the rain is going to come, when the flood is going to come, and the door is going to close, and there will be a deadline. There's going to be a deadline. Someday you're going to have to decide. What are you going to do? Don't leave the ark. Don't leave the ark. Better stay in the ark. But one of these days, the door is going to close, and there will be a judgment. I've gone in Los Angeles Dodger baseball games. You get down to the ninth inning, and you're behind, and you think, I don't want to fight through all the traffic. 50,000 people leaving. Let me leave now. Lots of people leave. So as soon as you leave, you get out towards your car. What always happens? There's cheers, and the reco goes all over the stadium into the parking lot, and you want, what happened? What happened? Well, it always happens. The Dodgers hit a home run in the bottom of the ninth, and now we won. We missed it. Don't leave the stadium. Don't leave the stadium. And God said, don't leave the ark. Get in the ark. Don't leave, because there is going to be a deadline. There's going to be a judgment. Daniel walks in with 1,000 people eating drunk in Daniel 5. And the handwriting on the wall, and he says, you are weighed in the balances, and you are found wanting. And that very night, there was a judgment. There's going to be a judgment. And there's going to be an end of the world. And there's going to be a flood. As in the days of Noah, there's going to be another one. There are two worldviews. One worldview is what might be called the evolutionary worldview. The world starts with the Big Bang, a little solidarity, and it grows with all the chemicals and amino acids and all the rest of that whole story, and the whole universe and galaxies and solar system. And then the stars cool, then we have all the elements, and then we have our own solar system. Then we have animals and life and light and human beings over hundreds of millions and billions of years. And the world is getting better and better. Whatever problems we have are not problems that come from sin and from evil. They become because we haven't evolved far enough. It's going to come. And if we can just get our politics right, and our government right, and our economics right, and our education right, and our science right, we can live forever, and we can make our own utopian world. Evolutionary worldview. The other view is the Christian worldview, that God made us in a perfect world, with the idea that we would be with him forever. He had the 3 chairs, and he invites the 4th to come and enter the life of the God of the Trinity. And then there was a war in heaven, and we've had sin and a fall. And the world is not going gradually upward. The world is fallen. There is evil because there is an enemy who has sowed the tares and the weeds in our world. And that's where evil comes. And we are not going to fix our problems. We are not going to get our government right. We always work on it. And we vote, and we do the best we can to get our education and our science and our world right. And we protect our environment, yes. But we do not believe that we're going to finally somehow make utopia in a millennium on this earth. And heaven's going to be here by our own power. God is going to break into our world. There is a deadline. There is a limit. I was a young pastor, baby boomer, when President Bill Clinton won the election. And I kind of go back and forth between the parties. I don't stay any one side, vote independent most of the time. But here I was tired of having these older men be presidents. I was ready for something new. And all of a sudden, he's older than me, but at least within somewhere of my baby boomer generation was going to be the president. And I thought, wow. And I listened to him. I stayed up late to listen to his acceptance address in Little Rock, Arkansas. And he was going to change the world, and he was going to make the streets safe, and we're going to have high-paying jobs. We're going to clean up the environment. We're going to get the schools right. We're going to be a force for good around the world. All these utopian values, and I think he's going to do it. I was ready to march. I was ready to send in my resume to say, and I want to join up. Where do I sign up? And then I remembered, I'm an Adventist pastor. I don't think the world is going to solve all its problems. It's not going to be saved by Bill Clinton and by our government. It's going to be saved by Jesus Christ coming into the world. There's a deadline. There's going to be a judgment. As it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the days of the Son of Man. There's two groups we believe at the end of the world. Are you in or are you out? There's something called postmodernism that says we can't really know truth. There is no absolute truth. You're locked inside your own brain. You cannot even validate whether what you see is really what anyone else sees. You can't validate it. You only know what you see and what you feel and what you observe. You can talk to others, but you can't be sure. Nothing is for sure. And so it takes away that sort of modern assurance and reliability of science. We're not going anywhere. There's no meta-narrative. We can't tell that the world is progressing in a particular direction, going to end up anywhere. Versus the other view that says there is truth, and there's a right and there is a wrong, and it matters what you choose. It is not just every man to himself, believe whatever you want. There's only going to be two groups at the end. And here we have the story from Noah. Are you in or are you out? Are you inside or are you going to be in a flood? There's only going to be two groups, and there's only one way out. You got to be in the ark if you want out. It is not whatever you decide. It is not up to you to decide your own truth. Not easy. It's not easy when you have no rain. You never seen a boat before. You're 500 miles away from the ocean. Not easy for Noah to get his family and his children to get away from the idea that the world is normal and is going to last and tomorrow will be like today. To get the kids to leave the party and come to get into the boat. But Jesus says that they're going to be like that at the end of time. There's going to be a party. People are going to be eating and drinking, and then there will be a flood. Are you going to be in the boat or not? One or the other. Everybody's going to be either in the party group or the ark group. It's one or the other. You can't choose in between. All through the Bible, there's two groups. Matthew 25, we have 10 virgins, but at the end, there's 5 in the party and 5 outside. One or the other. Elijah, he calls down the fire down from heaven. Then he says, if the God be God, then follow him. If it's not God, then Baal is God, then follow him. Choose one or the other. No in between. You have at the Red Sea, you're either Israel going across or the Egyptians who are drowned in the Red Sea. Two groups. Nobody in between. Bill Hybels tells a story of the sailing race he was in right down here in San Diego Bay. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the race, a huge aircraft carrier comes into the middle of the bay. And he said the race was over. Half of the boats went left, half of the boats went right, but nobody was in the middle anymore because the aircraft carrier was in the middle. Jesus Christ is that aircraft carrier. And you have to decide, are you in or out? Jesus says, my sheep know my voice. Are you in or are you out? 1 John 5, verse 12, he who has the Son has life. He who has not the Son has not life. One choice. Are you in or are you out? Are you in the ark or are you outside in the party? Revelation 22, verse 11, he who is righteous still. He who is wicked still. One or the other. C.S. Lewis says there'll be just two groups at the end of the world. Those who God says, thy will be done, and those of us who say to God, thy will be done. One or the other. Either you're doing your will or you're doing God's will. One or the other. Well, there will be a deadline. The question is then, when will be the deadline? This is a hard subject to wrestle with, this whole issue of what we call the signs of Christ coming. And I have sermons in my file for 100 years where preachers, back to my grandfather and his father, and all the way back, preaching the signs. Every time there was a new event in the world, there's the sign. There's the evidence. Christ is about to come. You better decide for Christ today. There's the earthquake. There's the disaster. There's the flood. There's the war. That's the final proof. And here we are still. What can we say for sure? Take the signs seriously. The Bible says when you see it, you'll know that it's at the very doors. There are signs I take seriously. I take global warming seriously as the environment is going crazy. What's going to happen to our weather patterns and in our ice caps? I think there's some serious issues with that. Whoever's fault it is, that's another subject. What about these nuclear weapons that are, who knows exactly who has their hands on it? The nuclear proliferation countries that aren't maybe the most mature and stable have their hands on it. What if terrorists get a hold of it? All the wars right now as we tape this, look at the wars that are going on. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, trouble in Syria, trouble in Yemen. Trouble everywhere. People wanting to have freedom. The global economy. How interrelated the global economy is. Just takes one thing to happen one place, and people lose confidence in the ripple effect. One oil problem, one environmental disaster. Look what's happened in Japan this year. One disaster, tsunami, earthquake, nuclear meltdown. Look what it does to their economy. What if we had those things? You can't keep up with it. There's not enough resources to solve all the problems. But ultimately, there are just two signs that I take seriously. Number one is the heart of God. Just the heart of God. You know the little movie where the father is the one who runs the bridge, and he has to turn the bridge so that the train will go. And the little boy is running down the tracks, and he yells, and the boy doesn't get it. And the boy, he has a choice. The boy or the train of strangers, and he turns the train, and the little boy is killed. How does that father feel now? There's only one thing he wants to do, is to somehow get back to see his son. And I just want to say the number one sign that Jesus is coming again soon is the heart of God. That Jesus has died for us. That's how he cares about us. God cannot wait to go one more day, then he has to have us back with him. It's in the heart of God. Jesus will come absolutely when the first moment he can. John 5:17, it said, my Father is always working, and I too am always working. They don't sleep every minute. All of heaven, all the angels, all the power of the Holy Spirit is trying to impress missionaries and everyone around the world to bring people to Christ. Because it's in the heart of God. It is the ultimate sign, is at the heart of God, wants everyone in heaven as fast as he can get them there. God never sleeps. Number two is the gospel, Matthew 24, verse 14. The gospel of the kingdom shall be preached into all the world, and then the end will come. I had a friend email me. He said, Jesus cannot come right away. There's too many things that would have to happen. The whole world's culture would have to be reversed. Religious liberties taken away. He didn't see it. How is the gospel going to go all the way to Mongolia? 68 million babies are being born every day. Every year? How can we keep up with all of this? He said it's not going to happen so quickly. We can't keep up with it. But you think about it. Elijah had that showdown in one day. Fire came down. Everyone made a choice. Mount Sinai in the Old Testament with the Ten Commandments, in 3 days, God demonstrated, and everyone had to make a choice. Are you going to follow it or are you not? There are all these kinds of things. Everybody in the world, when I preach around the world, knows about Tiger Woods, Muhammad Ali, Martin Luther King, some of these great famous people, Nelson Mandela. Everybody knows Muhammad Ali. Cell phones are everywhere. Facebook is everywhere. Twitter everywhere. Internet is everywhere. Why can't Jesus be everywhere? There was a man in the Philippines who got 100,000 pesos extra, a couple $1,000, and he sent the money back. And it went all over the Philippines. Everybody in the Philippines knows that story. That's how fast stories can go today. Someday there will be another Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego like Daniel 3 who will stand up for God. Another Elijah who will call down fire from heaven. There will be other great moments, and the story will go. Right now, 3 weeks ago, a book comes out by Rob Bell called Love Wins, challenging some of the traditional stories and issues about hell and suffering and heaven and the cross and so on. Whether you agree or not, but it's everywhere. And on the cover of Time magazine last week, 3 weeks ago, most people never heard of him or the book. 3 weeks later, it's everywhere. And he's one of the 100 most influential people in the world, according to Time magazine, in 3 weeks. Won't take long for the gospel to go all over the world. What's it going to take to get across? All the way through the Bible, we have these stories of water. We have the flood. We have the Red Sea. We have Elijah. We have the Israelites standing on the Jordan River. How are you going to get across? And Jesus is the ark. God has provided an ark. What does it take to be ready? Be in the ark. Go through the door of Jesus Christ. Are you ready? Are you an A Christian or a B Christian? It doesn't really matter. Do you know Christ? Have you gone? And you know the old story of Niagara Falls. This young man 100 years ago went over on the tightrope. He pushed a wheelbarrow across. I heard Bill Hybels talk about it. Can you imagine? He goes across and he calls over to his friends to come over to this side. He says, come on, Jesus, my son will go over and bring you over in a wheelbarrow. One group are the wheeler dealers, and they said, let's raise money, let's go on a helicopter. We don't want to go in that wheelbarrow. The other people try to do it on their own. They try to run with a rope and try to run across Niagara River before they get to the falls. Everyone is trying to find, other people are saying, I don't think there's any problem. No, there's one who has gone across. You go with Jesus, or you're in or you're out. God bless you.